So for today's moneymaker, we will be taking a look at recharging Rings of Wealth. And upon first glance, it doesn't really seem worth it, only 325,000 GP per hour, but that is if you're only doing 8 trips per hour. 8 trips is what you can expect if you are missing some of these requirements and want to run long distances to do this moneymaker. But with the items that we'll have, we'll be able to do much more trips per hour, which ultimately leads to a lot more GP per hour. Now, I'll be honest, the thing that inspired the creation of this video today was the fact that Amulets of Eternal Glory hit like an all-time high a couple days ago. They were sitting around 70 to 75 million, and I quickly went and checked the margins on Amulets of Glory. And unfortunately, even though the Amulet of Eternal Glory is worth so much, charging regular glories doesn't actually make you money until you receive that 1 in 25,000 drop. I think at the time of recording this, you lost about 1,000 GP, turning an uncharged glory into a fully charged one. So then I decided, let me check the prices of Rings of Wealth, and these had much better margins. At the time of recording this, you can make about 2,000 GP for each Ring of Wealth that you recharge. So yeah, definitely more worth it than the Amulet of Eternal Glory. So as for the gear setup, I was going to copy the setup that I used many years ago for my glory charging video. The only difference back then was that I had a DINS instead of an Ellie, but then I realized we don't need any of this. In this video, I'm going to try to make as much money as possible, so that means filling up our entire inventory with nothing but Rings of Wealth, so we have no food to eat and help survive against the PKer. This setup is not going to keep us alive without any food, so all this does is put a target on our back. So instead of going in this defensive gear, I'm just going to take the Max Cape. Now, the reason why I'm bringing the Max Cape is because it has a teleport to the Crafting Guild, which is where we will be banking, and we can also teleport to our POH to restore our run energy if need be. So if you don't have one of these capes, then just feel free to bring whatever teleport you use to go to a bank. I mean, you can use Rings of Dueling to go to Ferric's Enclave, or even Castle Wars. And if you don't have your own POH to restore your stamina, you can either buy stamina potions, or you can just use a tablet to teleport to someone else's house on World 330. I believe that's the world where they host other houses. The great thing about this moneymaker is that there's not just one way to do it, there's many different options you have. Just keep in mind that the methods that we're using is just for the sake of seeing how much money we can possibly make in 1 hour if we're just doing it at max efficiency. Now, as you saw there, we were slow buying the Rings of Wealth, which I think is a very important part of this moneymaker. Like I said, we had some really great margins at the time of recording this. I used GE Tracker to check the exact prices, and like I said, it was about 2,000 GP per Ring of Wealth, which is extremely good. Now, if you take a look at our inventory, you'll notice that it's full of Rings of Wealth. Like I said, we're trying to make the most money in this 1 hour, and we have 1 slot reserved for the Wilderness Sword 4. Now, don't be like me. It took me 30 minutes to realize that I can actually equip the sword. The reason why I didn't do it immediately was because, like I said, I was going to bring the defensive DINS Bulwark, or the Ellie in this case, and I just completely forgot that we could equip it. So if we were able to do that, we would have been able to bring 1 more ring per trip. But in the end, it didn't really matter, because I feel like if we had the sword equipped, it would have just painted a bigger target on our back. I mean, if I see someone in the wilderness with a wilderness sword, I can almost guarantee that they're, recharging glories or recharging Rings of Wealth, especially if they're running the route that we're running. A helpful plugin to use is the Player Indicators plugin. If you go to Highlight Others and set that to PvP, anytime you enter the Wilderness or PvP zone, it will highlight all other players red, which is a very handy feature. I don't know how long this has been around, because before, when I would use this plugin, if I wanted to highlight everyone else who wasn't a friend red, it would just do it everywhere. But now you can actually set it to where it only happens in PvP zones, which is a very nice feature. Another plugin that I thought I'd mention is the Large Logout plugin. Now, you do have to look for this on the plugin hub and download it. Me personally, before this video, I've never actually used this, but I have seen it on other videos and streams, and I find it hilarious. But I thought I'd mention it since we are in the wilderness. If you're worried about misclicking and not being able to log out in time, download this plugin, and there's no way that you will ever miss the logout button ever again. Now, if we do happen to get attacked, what do? Well, we can't really do much. If they are not using teleblock, then obviously our best choice is to just run north to the obelisk and teleport out. But more than likely, if they catch us in this setup, we will die. So something that we can do to mitigate some of the loss of money here is we can actually drop all of our rings of wealth before we die, because now we have something called loot keys. If you didn't already know, whenever you PK someone in the wilderness, they will drop a key instead of all the loot. So what this means is that most people are probably not going to have a looting bag these days, and will just bank on the fact that you're going to drop a key, which will only take one single inventory space up. So if you're dropping all your glories, they're most likely not going to pick them up, because otherwise they'd have to drop supplies and then risk getting PK'd. So if we do get attacked, then we'll just drop them to save some of the money. One thing that I noticed in this video was that since we weren't bringing all that heavy armor like the Din's Bulwark like we did in the other video, we were actually much lighter, and instead of having to restore our stamina after every 2 trips, we could do it every 3 trips, which ultimately means more rings of wealth charged, more GP in our pocket. Now you may or may not have noticed since it happened so quickly, but we only really saw 2 people here in this entire 1 hour. The first person we saw was at the very beginning, like in the first 5 minutes. There was someone at the obelisk altar, and I just ended up popping worlds. I don't think they actually had anything, but I didn't want to take any chances. And then the second time we saw someone was at about the halfway mark, about 30 minutes. We saw someone at the obelisk also charging either glories or rings of wealth, and they were actually hanging out at the crafting guild for like 20 minutes before that. So I don't know if they saw me using the teleport and decided to do the same thing, but as soon as I hopped over to the obelisk, they saw me and then immediately teleported out. So maybe they didn't know that I was doing the same thing. Also, because we were able to charge more rings of wealth than glories in our last video because of the weight reduction, I actually had to go and buy more rings of wealth. You'll notice that at around the 2-minute mark, my stock replenishes in my bank, and that's just because I went to the GE really quick and bought some more. So yeah, that's always good to see. But with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at how many rings of wealth we were able to charge in this 1 hour, and of course the total profit that we made. Alrighty, so after 1 hour of charging these rings of wealth, we were able to do 1,863. A good bit more than how many glories we got last time, but to be fair, we were lighter on our feet this time around. Let's go ahead and take all of them out and go and sell them. Alright, so unfortunately, I'm looking at the actively traded price and it says 11,721. That is not good, but GE Tracker is telling me that they're selling for about 14,000 each. So we're going to try to put it in for that and see how much money we can get. I'm going to put it in there for the offer price that is listed on GE Tracker, which is 14,178. And I'll actually drop it one more. And they just all instantly sold. So there you go. Yeah, so I guess if you wanted them to sell for a little bit more, you can put them in there for the current price or even the sell price, which was listed at 14,224, which is a little bit more. But I mean, I'm more than happy getting this, especially when it said that it was, 11.7k or whatever it was. So yeah, GE Tracker, definitely very helpful. So if we take into account the cost of supplies, which was just the uncharged rings of wealth, we spent 21,685,320 GP. Subtract that from the money we made, which was 26,151,751 GP. That gives us a grand total profit of 4,466,431 GP from 1 hour of recharging these rings of wealth. So this moneymaker is pretty insane. It's better than Vorkath. The only downside is that you're not getting any XP, and it can be kind of boring. Also, I recently got the recolor for my beaver pet since forestry was added, and it just felt right to give him the magic recolor because that's where I got it done. I just wish that, he kind of had the stars coming down, kind of like how it comes down on the magic bow. Well, it actually goes up on the magic short bow. I wish it would come down like on the trees, but yeah, still felt like the right one to pick. But I am curious, let me know which one your favorite is. I just want to say thanks for checking out the video, and thank you to all of my channel members. Once again, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, I'll catch you guys in the next episode.